Alright you guys, welcome back to the channel. Me and Shaylin are just out doing our morning walk around. We're going to do the chores here too. But we just came out to greenhouse 1. These plants have been out here for 2 nights now. And we forgot to set mouse traps. So there was a bit of damage at the beginning of the row of plants here. Not too bad, we'll try and get it dealt with today. We'll set a few traps. These violas are already starting to go into flower, as you can see here. And that was one thing that we did this year, is we actually moved our plantings for violas and pansies 2 weeks earlier, because they never seemed to be in flower in time for when people would want to start to buy them, which, as you could imagine, things sell a lot better when things are in flower. So we bumped them ahead for our wholesale customer as well as for our sale here, and already seems to be making a world of difference. These are probably the best violas we've had, eh, Shaylin?
Yeah.
So that's what's going on in here. We got to set some mouse traps. We'll probably bring some more plants up today. And then you got a bunch of seeding to do too?
Yeah, seeding and transplanting.
So we're just out in greenhouse 2 on our walk around. The onions haven't sprouted yet. This is our first time trying to sprout them outside. Well, not outside, but in the greenhouse. Normally they go into the seedling room, but you probably remember from the other videos that it's full right now. So we're trying something new. And I think one thing that we're gonna have to do, just so that the growth doesn't slow down, like the actual germination of the seed, is I think we're gonna have to turn the heat on. They're calling for quite a bit of rain and cloud this week. So daytime temperatures in this greenhouse aren't gonna be very warm. So to alleviate that problem, I think what we'll do is we'll turn the furnace on, and then we'll just have to manually adjust it for daytime, nighttime temperatures. But I think we'll crank it up so it's probably around 20 degrees in here during the day, just to try to get these to sprout. And then once they sprout, we can turn it down, but we shouldn't need to, Shaylin, right? Because the baskets will be here next 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, there's just this weird period between when the baskets come and what's currently growing in here. I don't like really turning the heat on and cranking it until there's a full greenhouse. So there's just a weird 2-3 day window here where I think we'll just have to eat the cost and turn the heat up in here to try to get these to sprout, and then go from there. The frost cloth seems to be helping though. I think it dropped down to 3 degrees last night, -3. So it was a good idea to put it on. And then the other thing we're going to be doing in here today, while Shaylin's seeding and doing some transplanting, I'll be bouncing back and forth, but priority right now, like I say, we're getting plugs for the baskets in 3 days. I got to get these other 4 beds built. So I'll try to get that done today too, get them strung out, compost in, amended. You might notice how slow that's coming out. We had last fall, there was a time period where this silo was empty. We were just in between deliveries, and I haven't anchored them to the ground yet. So we had a pretty bad windstorm, and this one actually blew over. And originally I didn't think that it had done any damage, but it turns out that it punctured, I shouldn't say punctured, there's just a small hole up in the top where it creased. And then when we had some rain over the fall and spring, some water got into that silo and got some of the grain wet. So there's these really big chunks that are kind of forming in there and not allowing the grain to flow through. So luckily it's still allowing some to go through, which is good. And then once we get that thing completely empty, we will have to get in there and somehow chip those chunks out before we get our grower for our meat birds in there. So one thing that we did just in this last month, we kind of noticed that the pigs were a little bit small. I think I was underfeeding them. We had a fair bit of this silo left still, and normally we burn through this when we've done summer pigs. So it actually ended up upping their ration. What we were doing, we usually start them on 1 bucket a day when they're piglets. We'll bump them to 2, and then bump them to 3 as they slowly size up, and then I tried to ride 3 buckets as long as I could, but I noticed that they weren't really sizing up. So in the last month, we bumped them up to 4. And they seem to have put on some size, and it's being that they're more active now too. I don't think it's going to be fat. It should be all good muscle, which is always a bit of a hard thing to do, is how much do you feed the pig so that it puts on, you know, good lean muscle and not just become fatty, because nobody wants fatty pork. At least I don't.
That's how it comes out when it's not full of chunks of feed.
So in that same windstorm that we had when that silo blew over, we were just building these range coops too, and we only had the front wall and the end wall on, no top, and the wind picked these things up and slid them probably, what, 200 feet, and slammed them into the bank, and kind of tweaked the one, which is unfortunate, but didn't seem to do too much damage. And then last night we had another big windstorm too, and this rattled loose overnight. And when we got home from town, all the chickens were out. So luckily I got pretty well trained chickens. They all went back at night, and we didn't end up losing any of the predators, which was good. All right, now that we're done our morning walk around, chores are done. We're gonna divide and conquer a little bit today, just to make sure we get as much done as we can. This week's gonna be pretty hectic with basket material coming. That'll eat up probably 3 or 4 days by the time that material gets here. So what I need to do today in preparation for baskets is we're gonna finish building the rest of these garden beds. So I got 4 more to do. Shaylin's busy fertilizing the pansies and petunias, that's one. And then she's gonna jump down to the nursery and get a head start on the seeding while I'm finishing this up. I won't bore you guys with this whole show, so I don't know. Well, we managed to get all these beds prepped. Things are looking pretty good. One thing that we will do here for these beds with silage tarp, because what happens is when we go to drag that hose around to water all the hanging baskets, we'll basically just deconstruct everything we just did. So by putting a silage tarp on top, it'll maintain the moisture, and then you won't get as much of the leaching of the amendments through the soil as we water the baskets in. So I'll try to get that done. Hopefully in the next couple of days, I'll have to cut a new piece. And then I also made a little bit of a change on this bed behind me. I actually moved it over 6 inches more to center. So you can see that trellis pipe isn't in the middle. What I was always forced to do in the past is run my cucumbers down this outside bed, and then same as on the far side bed, because I only run them 1 row and then trellis straight up, not out in a V. But being that we're doing less tomatoes in here, more peppers and cucumbers, what I'd like to actually be able to do is I'll move this trellis over a little bit to the outside, like 2 or 3 inches, to get it closer to the edge of the bed. And then I'm gonna get another row of conduit closer to this edge of the bed, similar to all the ones in the middle with doubles. And then I won't be as limited as to what I can run on these outside beds. And it actually gained us 6 more inches or so on this side, so that you can actually harvest down there. Before you couldn't, or you'd be catching your back on all these bolts. So trying something new this year. Hopefully it works and I don't regret it, because like I say, it did skinny this bed or this walkway up slightly, but you don't know unless you try, so hope for the best.
Hey guys, just out in greenhouse 1 doing a quick fertilizer treatment on our pansies and violas. So we just use the watering can, 2 tablespoons of fertilizer, fill it up with water, and then just apply over the top of all of the pansies and violas. We do that about once every 3 to 4 weeks on these guys. Pro tip when you're watering with the watering can and you have deep tables, I like to spend half of the watering can fertilizing the front half of the tables, and then once it's a bit lighter, then I just reach across and fertilize the back of the tables. Saves your back, saves your shoulders. They're not crazy heavy, but when you end up fertilizing for like 2 hours, once this whole place is full, your back and shoulders will thank you.
All right, well, we just got back down to the nursery. Shaylin's been busy in here this morning already. She has already done a bunch of veggies by the looks of it. Peppers, some zinnias, echinacea. We're doing some basket tomatoes this year, so that'll be interesting. Jalapenos, salvia, rutabaga, how do you say that? Rudbeckia, some kind of flower. And then we're just filling up a bunch of 606s right now because we're gonna start potting up all these petunias. And what else you've got to do over there?
Portulaca and Lobelia.
So with Portulaca and Lobelia, we're gonna go straight into the 606s. So I'm hoping that we have enough room, because you said how many? 30? 35 of them. So I don't know if we're gonna have room for all of what she's already seeded, plus that in there. Fingers crossed we'll make room. If we got to bring something out a little bit early, we will, because we did bump the heat up a little bit in here. And then what are you doing for varieties this year? All these?
This is a fun new one we're doing, this blue splash. It's like purple and white.
And you usually do what, like 5 different types of lobelia?
12 different types
12
of lobelia.
different kinds.
It's ridiculous.
Lots of different colors, hence the 30-something trays.
Because some are trailing and some are mounded.
Right, so you got whites, purples, blues, pinks.
Of the trailing and of the mounding.
Because why not?
Because, yeah, one doesn't know what they're going to need.
This is true. Okay, well, I'm starting to fill trays for Shaylin, and then Shaylin's seeding over here. And one quick thing with Lobelia and, which was the other one?
Portulaca.
With Portulaca, you actually don't need to recover the seed. So she's just making her indent. She'll sprinkle her seeds on top, and then we won't go back to the dirt and put more dirt on top. The seed actually needs light to germinate, so we'll leave it exposed on the surface. It's pretty well the only thing that
Coleus.
and coleus. Apparently there's
impatiens.
coleus as well, and impatiens. A long list of things. So something to just keep in mind when you're doing any seeding at home.
Make sure you check.
And then for Portulaca varieties, it looks like she did 4 different types. All right, well, we just finished seeding up Lobelia. We ended up being a bit of seed short for one variety.
There was 3 varieties that I'm short, but I just added extra white and some
Yep.
of the blue that I had extra.
So just one flat short. So just one flat short. We'll make a call, find out if it just didn't get shipped or what the story is there. And then what we'll do now is we're gonna water these flats in. And one thing to be cautious of is that the seed is on the surface. I've done this in the past and I'm not allowed to do it anymore. I water heavy. I just naturally water everything really well. So I blew all the seeds out the back of the tray without knowing. And then when it didn't come up for weeks and weeks and weeks, it was clearly indicated that it was my problem. So what we'll do now is we'll just water these in very gently, and then they'll go into the seedling room. And we'll come back and start the petunias. I already got a bunch of the 606s loaded up. We've gone through, I think, 4 bags of dirt already. So we're getting to that time of year now where we'll burn through easily 4 to 7 bags a day now that we're potting up into bigger pots. When we start doing vegetables like tomatoes, peppers that go into the 4-inch pot, we'll really start ripping through. So and hanging baskets, yeah, we'll burn through 2 pallets. But you can see here, this is all still extras from last year. And then I'll reload this. I've been making people pull them off the ground, so I usually leave like a solid row or 2 rows, just so it's an easier grab into the tote. So we'll probably bring another 10 or 12 in here for the rest of the week. But yeah, let's go have a quick look at the seedling room. Well, Shaylin's a little under the weather today, and if I know one way to keep her rolling, candy. All right, well, I just finished bringing out all the lobelia. So we basically filled the whole top row, and then I brought out all the peppers that we had done and everything else. We only got about 10 more trays. Shaylin's just doing the, oh shit, I can't remember what it is. Portulaca. So we got 10 more trays, so we still got a fair bit of room in here. We are done for week 10 planting, so that's a bonus. We were worried if we were gonna have enough room, but there should be a little bit to spare. I'm super excited that the peppers are starting to come. They're one of my favorites to pot up. Real easy, roots stick together nice, fast. So that's the sign that the veggies are starting to hit hard when you start seeing round one of peppers and tomatoes. So things are about to get pretty busy on the potting up front, which is good. The other thing that we'll do in here too is that we're constantly learning with this room with what should go where. So it's a fairly small room. It's a 20-foot sea can. Not a whole lot of airflow, and what we found is that certain vegetables and plants and flowers prefer to be on the upper shelves, and then others prefer to be on the bottom. So you'll see with our peppers and tomatoes, we'll always try to leave them between the middle and the top because they can handle a little bit more heat. And then things like portulacas, onions that are okay with a little bit cooler, we just stuff them down in the bottom. So it's just kind of a bit of a trial and error. You kind of move things around and find out what works best. You know, closer to the door is a little bit cooler than closer to the heat. So, okay, we're jumping into petunias here now, and Shaylin usually tries to plant around, what, 30 different varieties?
Yeah.
Which could be a friggin' nightmare because now we got to dive into this tag show from last year. We did get our tag order from this year, so that'll have to get organized at one point. But what we'll do is we'll just do one flat at a time, transplant them, and then we'll probably just take them straight up to greenhouse 2 and water them up there. That way we're not packing watered trays. Be a little easier. So we're gonna dive into these. It's any petunias that go into the hanging baskets we bring in as plugs. They're usually a more established plant, but they cost a lot more to bring in. So anything that's left over, we'll pot those up into a 4-inch, and you have to charge a bit more of a premium for them just because you have to pay so much to bring them in. So anything that we do from seed will always go into a 606. All right, well, another productive day here on the farm. We managed to get about half the petunias potted up, succession 1. We still got the rest to do there. Tomorrow we'll probably try to get to them. We ended up just leaving them in here for tonight. I ended up watering them. I know I said I wasn't gonna, but things change. So those will get moved tomorrow. We also prepped up all the beds in greenhouse 2 and prepped for baskets. Those come in 2 days, so that'll be probably a good video there too. We'll do a bunch of hanging baskets. Hey, thanks for stopping by. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.